Hi, I'm Gaia.
And I'm Angelica.
Today we're speaking to Rushil, co-founder of healthy fast food brand Urban Greens. Hi, Rushil.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
So, what is Urban Greens?
In a nutshell, Urban Greens is a healthy fast food salad bar created by three friends who wanted to change the way Londoners thought of salads, but also to bring something healthy and fast to the high street.
So, how does healthy and fast go in the same sentence?
I mean, I think there was a common misconception, especially in the UK and in London, where fast food meant unhealthy, meant, oily, meant a bit boring, meant a bit, it had bad connotations with it.
Sure.
And we looked at different concepts around the world and different markets, in continental Europe and the US, and a lot in Scandinavia as well, South Africa, where I'm from as well. And we kind of said, that connotation is not that strong there. There was an ability to get something healthy and interesting and tasty, which is very, very important, but also fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was lacking in the market when we thought about this concept, which we opened our first in 2019, but we probably thought about it about 2 years before that.
So, let's go back to 2019. What was the process in getting the shops, finding the manufacturers, I guess, finding the chefs? How did you put all these pieces together and launch your first shop?
It was quite a daunting task in the beginning because we were three friends, again, all met in university. Then as you do in university, you generally go down a corporate route, which we did. I went into finance. Human, my co-founder, went into management consultancy and finance, and Yanis went to his family business back in Greece, which is pharmaceuticals. So at the time, I was living in London, Human was living in Stockholm, Yanis was living in Athens, and we had to build this concept, not knowing anything. So we didn't take any consultancies or anything, but we knew food. And I think one of the most important things about us as entrepreneurs, or now we are entrepreneurs, is that we always kind of backed ourselves.
Yeah.
We felt, okay, we can do this.
You believed in yourself.
Yeah, we believed in ourselves a lot, and it might have come back, started with our parents and our upbringing, but I think it was almost like we knew that, okay, if we put our minds together, we could do it. So we didn't use Google that much. We kind of figured it out through talking to industry people that we knew, and we looked at suppliers, we looked at manufacturers, we looked at contractors, how to gain a site, how to do all of that, just using our network rather than Googling who sells kale in London and trying to find out someone like that. It was more like we had a big network, we were quite social, so we met a lot of people along the road in I think this was 10 years or 12 years being in London, and we kind of leaned on them to help us to try and develop it. But was it easy? No.
Yeah.
I mean, I was jumping
I
out
don't
of...
think it ever is.
I don't think it ever is.
I remember jumping out of meetings when I used to, work as an asset manager to take a call with Human about brokering the price of a broccoli.
How long?
That kind of
So
stuff.
how long did you play both sides for? So how long did you keep your corporate job, and then when did you decide to go full time on the startup?
Yeah.
How do you make that decision? When do you know, okay, I can actually give this a shot?
Initially wanted to build a concept, build a management team, and then oversee it. I think that was the original plan, mainly because we were quite settled in our career. We were in senior positions. We were actually doing really well. And I would say, I would use the term happy. We were happy at that point.
Really? Okay.
Because we did all the hard graft, we did all the exams, we did all the university degrees, we got into the jobs we wanted. We did the legwork to get into a position where we could add change to a company, and we enjoyed it. But at the same time, we just had that entrepreneurial, that bug that wanted us to. Mainly, it came down to creation. We wanted to create something. It was an inherent need in I feel like as a group, that we thought to ourselves, we want to create a product. We want to create. People use the term legacy, but I don't think it's too much about that. It was more about create something to bring to the market and see how it does. And I feel like if we didn't do it, we would always look back and be like, oh, we wanted to do this, why didn't we do it? So, as I said, it took around 2 years before we left our jobs of investigation and building the product, building the brand. I was a lot more interested in the branding side, and we found a really interesting chef who worked with us to build the actual concept in terms of the salads and the flavors and what we wanted to stand for. But then, like, it almost became like a surrogate, where we were having this baby was growing, and we didn't want to give it away, or we wanted to actually take care of it and actually grow it. So it came to a point probably about 6 months before opening where we decided, okay, maybe we should leave our jobs to do this. It was a very, very interesting and funny conversation speaking to a large asset manager who had been for a long time and developed a really, really nice niche and was doing really well, to say I'm leaving to start a salad bar.
To make salads.
Yeah.
Were they? Do you think they didn't believe in it? Do you think they were like?
I mean, I don't think I fully believed in it at that point. You know, it was really. I think it was a laughable conversation. We all laughed, but I think it was something that I always believe in, and maybe I get it from my upbringing, is that sometimes you got to I call it swinging the bat. You got to take a chance.
Take the risk.
Yeah.
I could always go back to finance. I could always go back to the career, but I feel like this was the right time in my life, mentally and professionally, because I think the mental side about being an entrepreneur is not talked about enough. It is extremely mentally taxing, and I feel like I was at that point in my life where I could be like, okay, I'm willing to take that chance. But it wasn't only me, it was the other guys as well. We were ready at that point, and we were going to do it together. So it was 6 months before we decided, and then I resigned, I think 3 months before, did it part-time, and then close to the opening was the full resignation. But I put the store 5-minute walk from my old job.
Right, so you had your colleagues, your ex-colleagues.
Yeah,
to
I thought if
convert.
500 people in a building were 5 minutes away and they liked me and would support me, why not? And that store till today is doing really well.
So what are the most taxing aspects of being an entrepreneur, would you say?
I think it is the unknown. I think there's a lot of moving parts constantly in every sort of market. Some of them are in your control, some of them are out of your control. I think what happens on the macro environment now has really, really affected a lot of businesses and a lot of product creators as well. And I think navigating that is not easy. I also think no one prepares you for the mental stress and the mental sort of resilience you need. Everyone says, oh yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I want to create something, and I want to build a product, I want to launch a product. But there's a lot of grit that you need to do it, and you know that grit is what takes you over the edge. You can create something that is mediocre, and with a lot of grit and a lot of resilience and a lot of focus, can make it something amazing.
Do you have an example of that?
I mean, I look at Urban Greens.
It's mediocre.
No. It's not in that sense, but it is essentially it's a salad bar.
Yeah.
But at the time, people thought of salads as, you know, some of the other providers in the market who were doing something that were very mediocre. And we had to educate the market.
Yeah.
We were the first ones in terms of the £8 salad moving over to £10 to bring that in, and it was quite ballsy. Because no one was doing something like that.
Is this pre-Attis and pre-Salad Project?
Funny enough, what was weird, we all started in that
Right.
At the
same time.
Yeah.
But
How
I think
does-
our doors opened, were the first.
And do you think what sort of macro factors were happening that made 3 different companies all at the same time come together and say, we're going to charge a salad for £12?
I think it was there was a movement of looking at provenance, where food is coming from, what you're putting in your body, the sort of lifestyle changes that were happening, I would say, a lot on the Western world, which is more on what was happening from the US. Let's be honest, a lot of concepts and movements come from the US and they come over to us. That was happening a lot. You looked at the likes of bigger brands like Sweet Green, which just, you know, doing extremely, extremely well, and that was starting to move over. And I think that started the whole thing of, okay, it was not only about creating an healthy salad brand, it was like people's perception of what they could get is starting to change, and they were thinking about lifestyle change, and that was why I think we all kind of saw it at the same time and kind of rushed to open.
I think what's interesting is we've spoken to quite a few food and bev people,
Yeah.
and what these founders often say is exactly that, sort of starts in the US first and then comes over to the UK. But some products really, really flop when it comes to the UK, like Monster, you know, the water, the canned water, which was
Liquid
really
Death.
Liquid Death, not Monster. That was basically just tinned water in the US. It came to the UK, completely flopped. What do you think? What components of a product do you think works in the UK versus something? Why is the appetite different here versus in the US?
I think here it's a lot more conscious and thoughtful. I think the variety is less. I think there's a lot more competition. I think one of the reasons I can't speak for the other brands in the market who started salad concepts, but there's a salad on every single menu on every single restaurant.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a staple. So it's not like you reinventing something, which we are reinventing the salad, but we're not reinventing a whole new product. And I think that was one of the things where we were just elevating what people thought about it. And in the US, I think it's uber competitive, and there's always new concepts coming up.
Would you say that a big part of the reason why it's different in the US is that branding carries more weight there? Because for Liquid Death, for example, that is 1,000% a branding play. It literally is just water in a can. But I feel like in the US, the consumer is a lot more receptive to the branding psychology aspect.
Definitely. Definitely.
And I think the US as well really lean into the whole shock factor branding, whereas the UK, there just isn't that much of an appeal towards that.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit more thoughtful. I don't think it's like now there's a few concepts that are very Instagrammy, and you go in when there's the cues in the beginning. But do those concepts sustain themselves? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I think it was less about that for us. It was more about building something and creating something. Again, I'm using that word, but that was going to last. And it was taking something that's on a menu, that's on every single menu, but elevating it and educating the consumer that you can pay or you can get something that is worth your while, that hits all the boxes that you want to build into your lifestyle, and get it really fast.
When you were creating the brand, were there any, as much as this was a very new concept, but were there any existing brands that you took inspiration from multiple aspects, so from the product creation side, but also from the branding side? What was your inspiration?
Yeah, we actually, because we weren't from food and beverage, we worked backwards a little bit. So we traveled a lot as a friendship group and as individuals. We knew what we liked when we walked into a establishment that was a food and beverage establishment, from the aesthetics, from the music, from the smell, from the customer journey, from how you felt as when you walked in to how you felt when you sat down. All of those kind of things, we wanted to take it very seriously, because at the time we felt concepts in the UK weren't taking that seriously. It's that added value that you get for that £1 or £2 that you're going to pay. Okay, it's a product, but it's a little bit more than that. It's an experience as well when you get into the store. So when you walk into an Urban Greens, there's a certain smell, there's a certain music, there's certain aesthetics of the store is in a certain way. There's always clean lines. There's not too many gimmicky things going on that kind of like makes you want to, makes you want to move around. It calms you a little bit in certain aspects. And what we do is we are fully transparent with our ingredients and our menu, and that's what you should be focusing on, and that's what directs you at that. So what we did is that we looked at concepts that were also not quick service concepts, where we felt that, and globally. So there was a lot in Scandinavia, which has you'll get a sense from our stores. It has a little bit of a Scandinavian
feel.
Very minimalistic.
And the sort of the wooden
correct,
vibe.
and it calms you a bit. The Japanese do it really well as well. Then there's, even with our furniture, then you look at concepts in South Africa, which were very much more of a cooler, kind of like relaxed kind of feel that we try to do with our uniform and the way we act and some of the music we play. And then you look at product placement and how the product is in your face and your focus is totally on the product. That comes from brands like Dig and Sweet Green in the US. But also we took all of those things together and put our spin on it. Because we never wanted to, you don't need to reinvent something, you just need to elevate it and make it your own. So we thought about all of those different things before we actually even got to the food.
I think what's interesting though, when you're talking about how you want your store to be an experience, I was reading this article about how Starbucks is now changing all of its venues and turning them into kind of like Soho House feel, making them like lounges. And I feel like that is something that a lot of brands are doing now, because the customer is more demanding, and customers are expecting more, I think, and they want to have more than like, you know, just a random experience. They want to feel like they're in a special place.
Yeah, but also if you look at in the past, that gap between 10 and 20 pounds.
Yeah.
10 years ago, that was when you sat down and ate.
For sure.
Yeah.
That was a sit down and eat kind of place. So now we're playing in a different. Obviously, you know, there's other factors like inflation and the pandemic and you know, rising everything. Now we're playing in that market. So you want to give the consumer a little bit more. And again, you know, I come back to the point. It's that building that whole journey. Why do I go to Urban Greens? Why do I, you know, arguably pay a little bit more for your lunch? Is because there's a lot of other factors in it, and you're getting a cracking lunch.
It's definitely fitting.
Yeah. I think it's interesting though, because fast food historically is at odds with that. Like that, this is much more of a luxury experience.
Exactly.
But again, I think the two things are merging now. Yeah.
What I think of is, I remember when Itsu and Pret came out, particularly Itsu, because Itsu for me seems like the fetal store when you look at Urban Greens. Like it's like Urban Greens seems like the butterfly effect from something like Itsu. And do you think these stores paved the way for the consumer to be open to something like Urban Green? Like, how do you think that evolution happened?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's always a nice opportunity to do something very different, but it's also nice to just, you know, not have the first mover advantage in that sense, by kind of learning what the consumer is doing, what they are comfortable with, and then adding a little bit of your spice and your thinking of how it's going to be in the next 5 years. And you look at now the concepts that are coming up, also on the restaurant scene, very, very minimalistic, very product-based, service-based, where the interiors and the experience is quite, how do I say, concise in what they and you know straight away.
Yep.
Where sometimes before you didn't really kind of know.
I think as well, like your stores, it reminds me of like a Pilates studio in a way.
Yeah, it's very wellness.
And
wellness
it's
vibes,
well, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It sort of really taps into that wellness aesthetic, you know, clean girl aesthetic in a way.
Yeah.
Yoga, Pilates.
And I think
which is
Pilates,
I would argue happened before the Clean Girl came out.
which it absolutely did.
Yeah,
So I feel like Clean Girl was the knock-on from something like Urban Greens.
It was
Pilates.
it was us looking a lot at spaces in California. We looked a lot of spaces in California.
That makes sense.
We looked at how I mean the lifestyle in certain parts of California are quite amazing. And the food concepts around that area blend into that lifestyle.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are quite interested as a brand and as a company in well-being. And we always have. We have an amazing part of our offering to our community called Talking Green, where every quarter we get industry spokespeople and industry experts on a certain topic around well-being. The recently was around mental well-being as well. We did one on movement and things like that, and that is something for the community that it's free, that we talk about, and it builds in with the brand. It's
definitely
we use this term thoughtfully curated salads, but also it's thoughtful. Our branding is very thoughtful and very curated, where we wouldn't do collaborations with just anyone. We look for independent, flavor pushing, bold ingredient-led restaurants and brands to work with. So and also every kind of product that we put out, we kind of a little bit slower with changing our menu, putting things on. But that's because we take a lot of time and effort into making it thoughtful, and we want that super concise menu, but everything has to be banging. Otherwise, it's not there.
How does Instagram factor into this? Because obviously this whole aesthetic is very much social media led, and because you were mentioning that most of the sales are online, right? So on Deliveroo and pushed digitally. How does all of this come together in your branding and the way that you communicate?
Yeah, digital sales is still not over 50%, but it's close to 40%. And I think that that is basing on the whole culture has changed with online ordering. And we built Urban Greens when I was talking about the stuff we thought about before we even thought about the product. We wanted a product that would be able to be delivered really well. So majority of our food when we first started until today, now we have a lot more warm options, was cold. So when you deliver cold food, you don't get that bad experience when the food is supposed to be hot and then it's cold. So it did really well on that side of it. It came a lot from a lot of social media. I was always like not that, how do I say, I didn't think it was going to play such a big part. And it does.
Quite a few founders we've spoken to have said the exact same thing, have said if the product's good enough, then, how much do I really need the marketing on social media when actually it's so impactful.
And I think our generation knows that,
Yes, and it's not impactful so much about the product, it's impactful about awareness. So you think about social media, you are getting bombarded with millions of products and millions of food items, if that's of your interest and things like that. It's about being there and building a
distinct voice almost.
Exactly, a distinct voice with the consumer, but getting someone to come and try your store. Our customer retention is very high, so we know if someone tries it, they're gonna come back, and we use a lot of social media for that. To build that and to have a little fun. Like sometimes everyone is super serious about everything. Like, we are not that serious people. We're serious about building Urban Greens and taking it, to the next level for the next 10 to 15 years. But founders forget sometime and people forget sometimes we need to have a good time doing it as well. Yeah. We need to have some fun. I think not everyone is an uber serious person.
Yeah, especially on social media. I think that's what people look for: organic, genuine, authentic, all of that. That's very important.
And we try and build that in to our culture within the organization, which is very important for us as founders. We want to take ourselves seriously, but not take ourselves seriously within the same time. We like to joke around. We like to have a good time. I always tell our team, your real life is out of the company. That's what you spend. You should be spending your time with your friends and family over breaking bread. That's the most important thing. And we try to push that because that's what it needs to be, and we believe in that as well. About having fun while doing it.
Sorry, I was just thinking about what you were saying with growth and expansion. You're just based in London right now?
We're just based in London right now. We have 5 stores. We're 6 years old. Our 6th store is coming up in a couple of weeks, which is really, really interesting. We have, so we kind of do a store a year. We've, again, moved in a steady pace. We work in a sense where we are very opportunistic. And we want to build this brand slowly and carefully, so it will last for the next 10 to 15 years. I think there's a real big rush. We talked about social media, and I'll have my dig at LinkedIn for a second. There's a real there's a real big rush to post a picture and say, I've sold my first business. I've sold my first business, and I've done this, I've done that, and which is great. And I think LinkedIn is interesting, where we've met a lot of people, we've hired a lot of people from the platform. It's great, but I don't think we ever created this business to sell it.
So baby, you're growing it.
You'll
forever nurture it.
A lot of companies do. That is their end goal. For a lot of people, that is the end goal.
Yes, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I feel like a lot of people just do that, and I feel that there needs to be.
Well, the motivation then is on the money rather than on the product and on the creation, which, from how you've described it, that seems to be the aspect that's most fulfilling for you, and it's probably the thing that will guide it to the point where it can be sold for a great amount of money, as opposed to a cheap sale after 3 years that when the company collapses after 5.
That is, and you probably saying all of these things because you've probably seen products like that in the market all the time.
Endlessly. And also on LinkedIn as well. Yes. Like, as you were saying, like I look on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn, it's so funny. LinkedIn, just like Instagram, just like TikTok, it's an ego-filling platform for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And unlike on Instagram or TikTok, which is very social based, it's professional based, which in a way adds more weight and more consequence because money's involved.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of people, it is, the finance is the end goal. And that perhaps is why it doesn't last.
Yeah, and I'm not going to beat around the bush. That's part of it as well.
Obviously, you need to make a living.
You need that.
But I always, we always, tell people, and we get approached by investors, and they ask us, what do you think about it? And we're like, do we have a good lifestyle? Yes.
Yeah.
Are we happy with the way things are going? Yes. Are you somewhat fulfilled? Because I don't think anyone could ever be totally fulfilled in their personal life. Yes. So why not ride this wave and enjoy it and have some fun and build an incredible team, an incredible company, and take it and do fun things and do collaborations, events, and go that way. And we still, we control the company, us three still. We are the shareholders. We don't have any other shareholders.
Great.
We've talked to a few.
Is it self-funded?
Yes.
Yeah.
We talked to a few friends who are willing to help us a little bit along the way, but we wanted to walk fast before we run, rather than walk and then run.
We've spoken a lot about this with a lot of founders, and what came up, especially with the younger founders, is that there seems to be this glorification of entrepreneurship, especially on LinkedIn, especially on all of social media platforms, and what most of them cite as the main reason why they want to get into entrepreneurship is because they want to be their own bosses and they want to feel like they're in command. What do you think about this? Would you say that was also some kind of factor for you?
And
would you say that's true?
And off the back of this as well, especially with young founders, there's this sort of unquenchable thirst and hunger to be successful, which perhaps in a corporate setting you then hit a ceiling and it's going to be 5 years before your next huge pay rise or your next huge bonus or whatever. How do you get to a point where you're sat where you are and you're fulfilled and you're happy, and it's not a sort of like huge uphill run, basically?
Yeah. First of all, I would say it's still a huge uphill run, and there's a lot of fulfillment left. And I think, talk to me in 5 years, and then maybe we see we change that or we don't. I think the perception of being successful because of social media is completely changed, and I think a lot of young entrepreneurs value that success on these certain things, these certain milestones that they can share to other people. And I would say entrepreneurship is not for everyone. I would say
so many people have said that.
Yeah, that's super fair though, because
I mentor when I can, and a lot of the times I'm a little bit of a tough love kind of person, and I say it's not for everyone. And I don't know if it was for me in the first when we started. You don't know, but now I can say that yes, but it wasn't. It was less about the command and having my own boss, whatever. It was more about, yes, I can manage my own time now, which is great, and which I think is a huge benefit. And I think time is one of the most important things. But also, it's that desire, and I feel like that desire sometimes is given to you because you're constantly looking at other people, and which social media does, when that desire might not actually be there. And
so it's envy rather than genuine motivation.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I got to start something, I got to do something. When
it's insecurity more.
Social pressure. You feel like
Where at the same time, you go to a dinner party and everyone's talking about, what are you up to today? And I'm not a little bit shy, but I'm more like very modest and humble in certain situations. In other situations, not at all. But and then you get the guy who's sitting at a management consultancy or a big 5 accounting company who's probably killing it. But has nothing to say. It's like, that's
just another day.
Yeah.
Just another year.
Which sometimes I crave for.
That stability does work for some people. Some people are very happy in their 9-to-5 jobs. They just you have a routine that you can.
I would say most are.
Yeah.
I would say most are.
Yeah.
Would you say you're an adrenaline junkie?
No, I would say I like to.
Are you fine with the risk?
Yes, always been fine with the risk.
That's different though than being an adrenaline junkie, I think.
No, because some people do crave that insane high you get when you make your first huge sale, or like when you open your first new store. Like that is an addictive sensation and feeling which can push people forward.
I agree, but not everyone feels that really intense high. I think. Sorry, I mean you have to answer this.
No. I feel like I don't know. I feel like I'm a little bit more laid back about all of these kind of things, where it's like, again, it comes back to the point where I feel very fortunate that I have this inside ability to like, you know, Rushil, you got this. You know,
so you have the calm.
Yeah. And it's more like, okay, it will come. But don't get me wrong, I have bad days. And I think one of the hardest part about being an entrepreneur and having, you know, being responsible for a large amount of people is sometimes you have to be Superman all the time. And
you do have two founders you can rely on.
True. But you know, it's
still the three gods who make the decisions.
But it's also you have to
provide.
be Superman every day. You can't sometimes have a bad day, because you know it's well, you can, but you know it's you just feel sometimes you can't, and I feel that's one of the toughest parts, is that being on and superhuman all the time, to try and motivate your company or your team to get to a certain way. But now I lost track of the original question.
God, I did too. No, we were talking about highs and being
I
a
don't
risk
think,
taker, and if that is, would you say that's one of the inherent qualities that founders have, or
I think,
feel like it varies?
Yeah, I think it varies, and I think if you speak about myself, it's calculated risks. I think it's like let's look at it a bit more. But yeah, would I have left my stable career and opened up a salad bar? Probably not. But I think maybe I wanted the rush of creating something and building something. So to your point, elements of that, yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks
for having me.
Conversation, and our listeners, please check out our other episodes.